Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of The Constitution and You, where we delve into a different aspect of the Constitution and discuss its importance in your very life. This week, we will be discussing the freedom of the press, as guaranteed by the First Amendment of our Constitution. Verbatim from the Constitution, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And that's it. Just a meager four-word phrase tossed in with all of our other freedoms like a great big old Caesar salad of basic human rights. But those four words hold a hefty influence and have come to encompass a majority of today's media. The roots of the press are in the roots of our nation, with the revolutionary writings such as Thomas Paine's Common Sense or the Federalist Papers, from Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison. Both sought to spread the idea of a nation free of the British regime. The press has also served as the public's primary source for information, from the local to federal level. For instance, the Watergate scandal in 1972, the reporters of which, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, even won the Pulitzer Prize for the reports they made on the case. And even when the press isn't exposing corrupt politicians, it's a fine tool for persuasion. For instance, during the civil rights marches in the 1960s, the press coverage, particularly during the Selma March, spread the idea's message across the nation. It also forced those in the North to realize just how harsh minorities were being treated. Now, of course, this is all on the national scale. How about we look into the media's effects at the local level, back in your hometown? For that, we will go to an interview with Mr. Scott Buckner, a local editor for the Kankakee Valley Post-News.
I think my job is to find the relevant story, or stories that are relevant to people, stories that people care about. Instead of you won't generally find big breaking news on our front pages, simply because first of all we're a weekly, and second of all we don't necessarily have the staff to generate for that sort of thing. So now my challenge is it's like, okay, let's find stories, about what makes the community tick, and that's the people. So I've been trying just to make it a more people-centric paper, because that's why you'll find.
That's correct, Nick. While photography is just now a common feature in news, it was truly groundbreaking at its conception. One example of which comes from the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire of 1911. Named by History.com as one of the most infamous incidents in the American industrial history, the fire cost the lives of 145 employees, many of whom were photographed while leaping from the building, hoping to escape the flames. Most of the deaths were easily preventable as well. The building simply lacked the numerous required safety features. Thanks to the images like these, as well as the protest of the working class, the U.S. took its first steps towards protecting its laborers. For more on the power of photography, let's go to Mr. Tom Sparks, photographer for the local news.
A photograph freezes an exact moment in time, and as long as there's no afterwards manipulation, it captures probably the truest essence of what happens.
As you can see, the press, government, and people have been intertwined in a semi-symbiotic relationship for most of U.S. history. Unfortunately, just as the press and media in general can be used for righteous means, so too can it be used for malicious ones. And the onset of the digital age has done good work of exemplifying the danger of fake news.
Now, fake news itself needs a definition. Satirical writings such as those from The Onion or Clickhole are fake news. They are mostly fabricated and absurd and just intended to be humorous. However, recently, the phrase has been used to discredit trusted news sources, those who shine a less than positive light on reality, and has become a buzzword of disagreement. Fake news is now being used to encompass any report that is perceived as uncomplimentary. When facts are no longer part of the discourse, the public doesn't know who to trust. Such a widespread public distrust has left citizens scrambling to figure out what the truth really is. And now the U.S. is faced with a devastating divide between the government and its people.
Yes. On one side, we have the president and his supporters who criticize the media and journalists, calling them the enemy of the people. They believe the press is working against the public and intentionally fabricating stories to hamper the president's name and interrupt his agenda. President Trump even demanded the repeal of libel laws, saying, quote, so that when they write purposely negative and horrible and false articles, we can sue them and win lots of money. This side believes they are waging war on corruption.
And on the other hand, we have journalists and reporters, high-ranking politicians, both former and current, who see the benefits of a free media. These people fight for a more open representation of the facts, instead of simply allowing the sources the president approves of to be heard. This group, too, believes it is fighting corruption and a potentially tyrannical government. Both parties, however, stand behind a different truth. We will conclude tonight with a short statement from Walter Cronkite, presented by Martin Kaplan of the University of Southern California. However, I will leave you with this. Our youth, our children, our future voters and leaders of the United States of America are being raised in a society that questions the very essence of truth. They are being raised in a world where right is determined not by facts, but by whomever is loudest, and anything that challenges that is deemed fake news. They are being raised in a state where truth is something that can be rewritten to benefit the needs of the individual. They are being raised with a lack of trust for the media and for our system of government. A lack of trust that poses a monumental threat to the future of our democracy. I'm Nick Scrobel. Have a good night.
In the context of Walter Cronkite's legacy, Cronkite's signature sign-off, "That's the way it is," avows that there is a way it is. It attests to the existence of reality, the reality of truth, the truth of evidence. But why do these values matter? What difference does excellence in television political journalism make?
We are not intelligent enough, we're not educated well enough to perform the necessary act of selecting our leaders for the future. We have got to improve that situation, and it's going to be, to a large degree, up to us in television and radio, in broadcasting, to get that job done. If we fail at that, our democracy, our republic, is, I think, in serious danger.